The left makes the claim that the American economy relied on slavery to its benefit, and that even those who didn't benefit from slavery indirectly benefited from slavery. But there's only one problem with this claim. It doesn't make sense. Slavery was, of course, a very important part of the American economy, but it was also the most backward part of the American economy. Free labor is more economically efficient than slave labor. There's a reason that Alexis de Tocqueville, touring the United States in 1835, described the South as a society, quote, gone to sleep. In fact, the growth of the Southern economy remained slow all the way from basically the beginning of the Republic through the Jim Crow period, because during slavery it was slow because it was all agricultural and because it wasn't using free alienation of labor. And then it was slow because of Jim Crow. And then after Jim Crow, suddenly the Southern economy starts to boom, and you start to see a net migration back into the South after the end of Jim Crow. During Jim Crow, black citizens are fleeing to the North and bringing with them the intensive human capital that they bring with them, right? They make Detroit rich, for example. Instead, after the end of Jim Crow, people start moving back to the South. So the idea that Jim Crow made places richer, made the American economy richer, or that slavery made the American economy richer is obviously untrue. If slavery had been an economic winner, dude, don't worry, there's a Q&A. If you want to be the first person in the Q&A. If you want to be the first person in the Q&A, it can be you. Okay. Okay, you're perfectly welcome to ask a question. If slavery had been an economic winner, the South wouldn't have been roundly defeated by the industrialized North. The end of slavery meant a drop in agricultural capital in the United States and a massive uptick in industrial and housing capital, as well as in other domestic capital, according to far left economist Thomas Piketty. Our labor stock soared, our capital stock soared in the aftermath of the Civil War. Dude, like really, you can ask a question, I promise. You can be the first person to ask a question. You can...
ridiculous speech that he's making. Where's my free speech?
Your free speech is during the Q&A, dude. I mean, like...
During the Q&A. I believe that I should have free speech now.
Well, nobody hired you to come up here and talk. So if you want to convince somebody to hire you to talk... It is economic illiteracy to suggest that America's economy is rooted in slavery. We are a highly industrialized economy. We have been for more than a century. And even when we were an agricultural economy, slavery was an economic drain on everyone other than slaveholders themselves. This means that the authors of the New York Times 1619 Project are forced into the unenviable position of blaming slavery for America's prosperous system of free market capitalism, which requires a hell of a trick, since free market capitalism is precisely the opposite of forced labor. So we end up with the absurd spectacle of Matthew Desmond suggesting that the quote-unquote brutality of American capitalism is modeled in slavery.
Terrible speech, Ben.
Okay, I've offered the opportunity for this gentleman to be first in the Q&A line, and now he's actually just disrupting the ability of everybody else to hear the speech. Honestly, I have a 3-year-old who disrupts this way. Proponents of the view that slavery is the root of economic inequality also make this argument, that slavery is the root of economic inequality between black Americans and white Americans. And there is clearly and undoubtedly truth to the idea that economic history impacts economic present. Obviously, history always affects the present. Such history can mostly be seen in statistics like the wealth gap, which of course measures accrual of wealth over the course of decades. And so naturally, redlining in 1960, racist policy in 1960, can have effects on inheritance in 1980, which have effects on wealth ownership in 2019. Of course, that's true. But the continuation of income disparity among races in the United States is today overwhelmingly not the result of racism, Jim Crow, or slavery. Income mobility and disparity is a statistic that should worry us. Honestly, honestly, I'm more than happy to have this person ask a question, but this is now the 4th time that we've been interrupted during the speech. Sir, if you can't if you can't at least sit down and be respectful to the other, 1,500 people in the room, then get up and leave. I'm simply not going to continue this nonsense until this person leaves, frankly. I can't, I'm sorry, I can't continue. This is silly. I appreciate it. Honestly, that's too bad because you heard it. I offered multiple times for him to ask the very first question. I'm more than happy to talk about the points. I'm not more than happy to have someone disrupt the speech for 1,500 other people because he can't keep his mouth shut so long as the speech continues. Now listen, slavery has been a feature of societies across time and place. Freedom is what makes America unique, not slavery. Freedom is what makes America unique. We are a country based on freedom, not on slavery.